Green, there's that flag you were talking about being burned here. What kind of things are they shouting, the crowd that's out there?
What's really unfolding in these early days of 2026, when the world hasn't even had a chance to catch its breath before getting pulled into a spiral with no way out. In just a short time, prayers ring out in the heart of America's capital. The Patagonia forests burn fiercely. Strange shapes appear in the sky. Holy statues rise up from the ground. Lake surfaces crack open. Streets sink into riots. Tornadoes roar like trumpets. The sun swells up unusually big. Fire whirlwinds stand tall in the desert, and glowing clouds drop so low it's hard to breathe. Do you feel that fear spreading as these events stop standing alone and start pushing against each other like a chain reaction? Those 10 signs aren't making noise on their own anymore. They're piling on top of one another, squeezing the present and making the future look dark and uncertain. But this is only the opening part of a picture that's slowly coming into view. Keep scrolling down to see more clearly what's being laid out ahead. And if you still hold a hope for peace in your heart, leave a prayer below for this shaking world. Now, let's get started right away with the first event. Trump organizes a massive prayer event for believers to pray for peace in America in 2026. Night settled over the National Mall in an unusual quiet, where the lights weren't just for illumination anymore, but to hold onto that solemn feeling. Under the shadow of the Lincoln Memorial, long rows of people knelt down, their hymns rising slowly, blending into the cold, early year wind like an old ritual waking up in modern times. In that moment, you could really feel a rare kind of calm when the worries of the day stepped aside for a deep hope of being protected. The America Prays event, held right in the heart of Washington, D.C., stood out not just for its size, but for how it brought strangers together in the same rhythm. Major religious groups were there side by side, rows of American flags standing still in the breeze. And on stage, Donald Trump appeared with a call to turn to Jesus as a spiritual anchor, not shouting, not declaring, just stressing the need for unity and faith. Laser lights drew across almost 500 feet long across the night sky, creating a sacred feeling that hushed the crowd before they all joined in song. In that space, the Bible came up gently, more as a suggestion than a firm point. Matthew 18:20 says, "For where 2 or 3 gather in my name, there am I with them." Those words echoed not to explain the event, but to light up what was happening. A strength coming not from one person, but from people united in the same belief. As the shared emotion built, the faces turned toward the stage no longer showed differences in politics or background. There was just the sense of standing together in a big spiritual circle. Joel 2:28 was mentioned again, like a whisper through the crowd. "And afterward, I will pour out my spirit on all people. Your sons and daughters will prophesy." The scripture felt like a bridge here, hinting that shared faith could offer comfort in uncertain times. It all ended in a heavy silence, with nobody rushing to leave, as if waiting for some sign that hadn't come yet. That prayer gathering hung between hope and worry, like a lighthouse shining in rough seas, but no one could be sure if the ship would reach safe harbor. That quiet pause opens the door to the rest of the story, where each next event will slowly answer whether the light that just flared up is the start of a revival or just a quick flash before a bigger storm. Blazing fires in Patagonia's forests can't be put out because of environmental cuts. The fire started without warning, swallowing up the old-growth forests of Patagonia, like the ground itself opened up and spat out hell. Thick black smoke rose straight into the sky, blocking out the sun for miles around and turning daytime into a long, eerie dusk. The crackling pops of dry trees burning mixed with desperate cries for help from isolated communities. The scale of this disaster is overwhelming, turning personal fear into something everyone shares. According to reports from mainstream news sites, more than 700 people in Argentina's Patagonia region had to be evacuated in a hurry, and at least 20 homes were burned down in a short time. The fires have spread over thousands of acres, while local firefighting teams are badly short on people and equipment after environmental budgets were cut by 81% recently. Looking at those cold numbers, it's hard not to feel like this isn't just an accident. It's the result of choices made over many years. Environmental experts say cutting back on forest protection funds and fire prevention spending has left Patagonia's ecosystems extremely vulnerable. Strong winds blowing through dry valleys turned the flames into walls, nearly 100 feet high. Wild animals panicked and fled, leaving behind bare forests and air thick with poisonous smoke. Amos 4:7 once wrote, "I withheld rain from one city while I made it rain on another." And those words ring out like an accusation, pointing to the imbalance people have caused and the disaster now pouring down. In deeper analyses, scientists warn that the damage won't stop with what's burning right now. Burned forest land will lose its ability to hold water, raising the risk of flash floods in the coming rainy seasons and disrupting the livelihoods of thousands of families who depend on the forests. Revelation 8:7 describes, "The first angel sounded his trumpet, and there came hail and fire mixed with blood hurled down on the earth," and that image doesn't feel far off anymore, as fire and smoke have become familiar signs of a planet pushed to its limits. Skeptics call this disaster a natural event that's hard to avoid, but the data on budget cuts, weakened environmental protections, and slow responses paint a different picture. The Patagonia fires are like a warning written in smoke and ash, reminding us that every decision today leaves lasting marks on the land and climate. And with the first flames not even out yet, the big question hanging in the air is whether this is just a local tragedy or the spark for a wider wave of destruction across South America. Those mysterious eyes in the sky. The sky suddenly tore open like a thin curtain, revealing a shape that stopped people in their tracks. The layers of clouds formed a huge eye, wide open and still, hanging right overhead. The first feeling wasn't fear, but a breathtaking wonder, like something hidden had just been uncovered. Have you ever wondered, if the sky could look down on us, what it would see? This sight didn't show up in just one place. From the cold lands of Northern Europe to the misty valleys of Wales, social media was flooded with similar videos, spreading fast like wildfire. Pink and blue colors glowed around the pupil, forming a perfect ring of light that was hard to believe. The timing and shape being so similar made many folks feel it was more than just chance. From the videos shared, the eye was miles across, stayed put for a few minutes, then vanished all at once, as if it had never been there. No official word from experts, just quiet comments from viewers describing the sense of being watched from above. In that moment, the uncertainty turned into a chill, because no one knew for sure what they'd just seen. Psalm 34:15 says, "The eyes of the Lord are on the righteous, and his ears are attentive to their cry." Those old words suddenly rang out in today's world, like a key unlocking some deeper meaning. When the shape in the sky looked like such a perfect eye, a lot of people stopped seeing it as just a trick of the clouds. Debates exploded all over online forums. Some believe it's a holy sign, a stern gaze piercing through the world, reminding us of things we're trying to hide. Others push back, saying it's just a light effect in the atmosphere, rare, but still natural. The two sides clash hard, with neither backing down. Revelation 1:7 says, "Look, he is coming with the clouds, and every eye will see him." For many, that verse isn't some distant symbol anymore. It feels like it's happening right in front of them. They think that gaze in the sky isn't there to enjoy the view, but to watch what's going on down here. Between belief and doubt, one thing still hangs in the air. That feeling of being watched hasn't gone away. If those eyes really appeared as a reminder, what's coming next? And what do you think? Is it just random clouds? Or a quiet gaze counting down the time we have left? Archaeologists uncover the upper body of a giant statue of Jesus. The excavation started quietly, no fanfare, no hint of what was coming. Layer by layer, the dirt and rock were peeled away until a familiar shape slowly emerged, solemn and slow. The air grew heavy, as if the past was speaking for itself. Sometimes silence says more than any words ever could. From deep in the ground came the upper part of a huge statue, arms spread wide. The stone eyes looked down, not angry, not blaming, just carrying a quiet sadness that's hard to name. Anyone standing there couldn't help but pause a little longer, feeling something deeper than ordinary archaeology. Do you ever get that gentle but deep touch in moments like this? In Encantado, Brazil, the statue, about 140 feet tall, was lifted from the earth after being buried for so long. Its arm span is close to 92 feet, and as the stone was cleaned, every detail came back clear, shining like it had just been carved. Lately, social media has been sharing a story. This statue reminds people of sacred figures that have appeared in different places around the world, like pieces of a memory that never really went away. When people look into those thoughtful eyes, many say they feel a slow wave of reflection. Not fear, just a quiet questioning, like being invited to look at themselves. How can a stone gaze feel so moving? And why does this image show up right now? Isaiah 53:3 adds a deeper layer. He was despised and rejected by mankind, a man of suffering. The verse feels like a gentle suggestion, nothing forced. That sadness in the stone eyes suddenly looks like forgotten love, understanding that's quiet but lasting. Once placed in the church, the statue is more than an old relic. It stands there silently, arms open but not grasping, as if waiting for people to come on their own. Have you ever wondered why open arms can comfort you and still leave a soft ache in your heart? John 3:16 closes with a lingering echo. For God so loved the world that he gave his one and only Son. The love spoken of isn't loud. It comes with sacrifice and pain. Maybe that's why the statue isn't complete yet, still unfinished, like an open question left for all of us. If one day the rest of the statue is found, what will be finished first? The stone figure, or the awakening in the hearts of those looking up? The ground under the lake bottom suddenly heaved up and split open. The calm water surface suddenly shook like someone was pounding hard from below, and in just a moment, the earth and rocks swelled up, ripping the lake surface into long, twisting, dark streaks. That sight left many people stunned, because it didn't look like any familiar disaster they'd seen before. Have you ever imagined that something that seems completely still under your feet could suddenly rise up like that? At Great Salt Lake in Utah, mounds covered in reeds suddenly rose above the water, along with murky streams bursting out from underground springs below. Many areas saw the ground push up about 10 feet, with cracks stretching for miles like fresh scars across the lake's body. The air felt heavy, because every cracking sound gave the feeling that something was trying to break free. People standing near the lake said the water didn't just pull apart, it swirled a bit, like it was being sucked down and then pushed back up. The cracks spread fast, cutting through areas that seemed solid, creating a scene that was both chaotic and puzzling. At times, the whole movement seemed out of step with the normal rhythm we're used to. Revelation 6:12 comes across like a chilling warning. There was a great earthquake. The sun turned black like sackcloth. When those words come to mind, the ground shaking no longer feels like just a change in the land. It seems like a roar that's been held in too long, now forced out through the breaking. Videos spreading online show similar cracks that appeared in Colorado and Michigan, making many people think of a connected chain of underground movements. Plenty of folks say it's just geological changes, but the strange shapes and how fast they spread raise big questions about that view. Which side do you lean toward when you see those images? Joel 2:10 adds to the uneasy feeling. The earth shakes before him, the heavens tremble. This Bible verse leads many to believe the earth isn't just reacting physically, it's sending a serious message. The ground heaving up like it can't take any more, and each crack a reminder that limits have been reached. On forums, arguments flare up fiercely. Some say it's a rare event, but still within natural laws. Others believe it's the start of a bigger collapse. The debates clash without mercy, because fear always brings belief and doubt side by side. Where do you think the line is between explanation and warning in a moment like this? If those cracks keep spreading, will they stay just at the lake bottom or go farther, reaching the very ground we stand on every day? American flag burned in Minneapolis to protest ICE's wrong actions. The streets of Minneapolis turned chaotic as loud chants echoed, sirens wailed, and people rushed around, creating a scene that felt tense and overwhelming. In the thick smoke, flames shot up from an angry crowd, making the heavy air even more strained. Can you picture that moment when order and anger clash head-on like that? It all started at East 34th Street and Portland Avenue, where thousands gathered after ICE shot Renee Nicole Good. Things quickly went from tense to confrontational, with shouts mixing with the sound of breaking glass, spreading a sense of disorder. News reports say the protests heated up when an American flag about 20 feet tall was set on fire, thick black smoke covering the intersection, forcing police to set up barriers. News reports say authorities brought in more crowd control units while protesters kept pushing toward main roads. Photos show the crowd looking both mad and confused, some watching from the sidelines, others facing off directly. The constant movement of people put the downtown area on high alert, with traffic jammed for hours. Matthew 24:10 comes across like a stark warning about today's reality. At that time, many will turn away from the faith and will betray and hate each other. When you put this Bible verse next to scenes of a flag burning and opposing groups clashing, it makes the cracks in our community stand out more. What do you see when those images spread all over social media? Meanwhile, Romans 13:1 talks about order and authority. Let everyone be subject to the governing authorities. This contrast has a lot of folks wondering about the line between standing up and following rules, between feeling injustice and keeping things stable. Plenty of people say violence just deepens divisions, while others see it as a cry of desperation. The debates that followed were heated but mostly measured. One side sees it as the result of long-building political and social tensions. The other believes the spread and the burning of that symbol point to something bigger than a regular protest. Which explanation makes more sense to you as these events keep unfolding? If the fires in the streets are just the beginning, the big question left is whether they'll die out soon or keep smoldering, testing the ties that hold America together in the days ahead. Mysterious, twisting tornadoes from giant trumpet-like clouds. The sky suddenly darkened with heavy gray clouds, massive swirling masses hanging low and thick, almost suffocating, making everything feel overwhelming, like the air itself was closing in. From the center of those dark clouds, tall wind columns dropped straight down to the ground, one after another, both majestic and frightening, giving the sense we were watching something beyond the usual rules of nature. No loud bangs, no bright lightning, just a quiet but powerful presence that made your heart beat faster. As it went on, there weren't just one or two of these twisting columns. More appeared, standing side by side like huge trumpets pointing straight from the sky to the earth. They spun fiercely, wide and flared at the top, narrowing as they touched the ground, creating a rare sight that made many people think of a signal being sounded from high above. The wind howled, the ground shook, and it all happened so fast, like one warning after another, with no time to catch your breath. Revelation 8:6 says, "The 7 angels who had the 7 trumpets got ready to blow them." That image, next to these twisting columns appearing together and shaped like trumpets, makes a lot of folks pause and think about the eerie connection. Old symbols seem to be playing out in today's skies, like a message laid out again for everyone to see. Psalm 107:25 goes on like an explanation of that power. "For he commanded and raised the stormy wind, which lifted up the waves of the sea." To believers, these twisting columns aren't just air moving around. They're a response, where nature becomes a way to send a message beyond human words. Each swirl reminds us that wind and storms have never been purely random. From a scientific view, weather experts say this is a multi-vortex event, happening when unstable conditions in the atmosphere cause several wind cores to form at once. Differences in temperature, humidity, and wind speed create those flared columns, sometimes reaching speeds up to 165 miles per hour, strong enough to destroy anything in their path. To them, it's an extreme but explainable part of how the atmosphere works. Two viewpoints, one seeing it as physical laws, the other as a symbolic warning, leave you in the middle, not sure which to choose. When you're caught between them, which side do you lean toward? Seeing those wind columns as just harsh weather, or as a message sent through the language of the sky? No matter how you look at it, the way these twisting columns appeared all at once, with their unusual shape, is a strong reminder that we don't control everything. If this is just the beginning, what might come next after those trumpets have sounded in the air? The sun suddenly looked brighter and bigger, with a strange halo around it. The daytime sky suddenly turned unusual when the sun appeared larger than normal, with light so intense that it left many people stunned and worried. The rings of light around it weren't faint anymore but spread out wide, giving the feeling that something was getting closer to Earth. In that scene, all sorts of questions popped up in people's minds, because what was happening didn't look like any ordinary midday sky we'd ever remembered. As the light got stronger, the whole atmosphere shifted to something both amazing and scary, like nature was opening a door that folks weren't ready to walk through. The sun wasn't just glaring more, it felt like it was swelling up, with a bright halo stretching for miles, causing glare and temporary blindness in many areas. In that moment, we really felt how fragile we are, compared to a source of power that's always seemed so familiar. Matthew 24:29 once said, "The sun will be darkened, and the moon will not give its light. Those words echoed like a haunting contrast, because instead of fading, the sun was getting way too bright, way too close, as if setting the stage for some kind of reversal that hasn't been fully told. Old images from the past suddenly took on a whole new meaning under this light, leaving many unable to stay indifferent. As the phenomenon kept going, a vague unease spread through the watching community, where the line between wonder and danger felt thin. The halo was perfectly round and unusually sharp, making the sky look more like a surreal painting than a natural view. In those seconds, you might feel time slowing down, with every ray carrying a weight that's hard to describe. Revelation 16:8 records, "The fourth angel poured out his bowl on the sun, and the sun was allowed to scorch people with fire." Those words came across like a direct warning, putting that blazing light in the context of judgment and limits. No longer just a gentle source of life, the sun in the Bible takes on the role of a tool to test humanity. Online, opinions quickly split. Some saw it as a spiritual sign. Others tried to find a more familiar explanation for what was happening. No official answer came out at the time, just a flood of photos, videos, and waves of anxiety passing from one to the next. It was the lack of a clear explanation that made the unease grow even thicker. No matter how you look at it, that moment when the sun turned strange left a mark that's hard to forget in our shared memory. If this light was just the opening act, what might happen as it keeps changing in the days ahead? A strange fire tornado in the desert. The quiet desert suddenly turned into a wild scene when fire burst up from the ground, twisting straight up like a living pillar. Red sand got thrown everywhere. The air shook from the intense heat and howling wind, making you feel dizzy as if the line between earth and sky was being ripped apart. It all happened so fast you couldn't even catch your breath, leaving behind a sight that was both destructive and captivating. As the flames settled into shape, they no longer spread wildly but formed a bright red whirlwind, towering high in the sky. The rings of fire wrapped tightly around each other, spinning fiercely, pulling in sand and dust into its scorching core like it was swallowing the whole desert. In that moment, you really feel how small we are in front of something that looks like hell on earth. Revelation 9:2 once described, "He opened the shaft of the bottomless pit, and from the shaft rose smoke like the smoke of a great furnace." The image of smoke and fire pouring up from deep in the ground makes those Bible words echo like a judgment being announced, where fire isn't just a natural thing anymore but a sign of reckoning. That burning feeling doesn't just destroy things, it stirs up real fear in anyone watching. Ezekiel 1-4 goes on to paint the picture stronger. "I looked, and I saw a windstorm coming out of the north, an immense cloud with flashing lightning and surrounded by brilliant light." When you put those words next to this swirling fire tornado, it doesn't feel like some distant metaphor anymore, but like it's happening right in front of you. The flames become a final warning, reminding us there are limits you can't cross without paying a price. In the middle of that blazing sight, it's easy to get caught up in a mix of fear and curiosity, because the deadly beauty of that pillar of fire has a pull that's hard to resist. While watching, time seems to freeze, and every twist of the flames burns deep into your memory. It's that contrast between terror and wonder that makes this kind of thing spread so fast. From a scientific view, researchers explain that fire tornadoes form when superhot air from a blaze rises quickly, creating a low-pressure area that sucks in cooler air around it, starting the spinning motion. According to physics, differences in temperature and wind speed can make the fire column reach about 100 feet high, with spinning winds up to 100 miles per hour. This shows how nature follows strict rules, even when the results look beyond normal imagination. Even with explanations from formulas and models, the fire tornado still leaves a big question hanging about its deeper meaning. If these flames have only shown up now and then in remote deserts, what will happen if they aren't confined to those far-off places anymore? Pure white clouds lowering close to the ground, with green and red aurora lights. From the northern horizon, a big mass of white clouds slowly drifted down lower, with thin green and red lights like silk threads wrapping around it. It was so beautiful that it made you breathe a little slower. That moment didn't shock you. It left a quiet kind of wonder, like seeing something familiar suddenly look different. Do you feel that strange peace when that light touches the air? This was spotted in Alaska and parts of Northern America, where videos spread on Facebook and Instagram showing pure white bands of light coming down stretching for miles, floating close to the ground. Some reports on MSN describe the light pillars as light beams cutting through the clouds, making everything unusually still. No loud rumble, no crash, just the slow presence of the light. Revelation 21:1 comes to mind like a gentle whisper. Then I saw a new heaven and a new earth, for the first heaven and the first earth had passed away. Those words don't push or scare. They just open up the idea of renewal, where heavy things get set down. The white clouds remind you of a different kind of order, one that doesn't destroy, but purifies. The white clouds came down so low, it felt like you could reach out and touch them, with the aurora lights sparkling thin, and even not fierce and bright, but clear and calm. The space around grew quiet, the rough edges of rocks and land softened by that gentle glow. That purity didn't come from being intense, it came from the stillness. Psalm 104:3 is mentioned as a vivid touch. He makes the clouds his chariot and rides on the wings of the wind. That picture puts us in our small place, not to make us feel low, but to let us truly admire. Clouds aren't just water vapor anymore. They become the way for holy movement, light, and lasting. The science side calls this the result of a geomagnetic storm, charged particles hitting the atmosphere and creating white auroras. That explanation is clear and makes sense, but it doesn't cancel out the feeling of purity spreading. When the light doesn't scare or burn but calms things down, you wonder if there's something beyond the formulas. That mass of white clouds feels like a sign reminding us that a new beginning isn't always loud. Sometimes it shows up quietly to invite change from the inside. And as the green and red lights fade into the night, the question lingers. Is it a door opening or the last reflection before darkness tests our faith? 10 phenomena have come one after another, like different slices of the same big picture, from snow and ice showing up where they don't belong, to restless seas and skies turning strange colors, all the way to fire, wind, and lights hanging low near the ground. When you put them side by side, they're no longer just separate moments. They become one continuous flow, where nature seems to be speaking in many voices at once. What we've seen doesn't stand alone. It all fits into one shared rhythm of warning and getting ready. Matthew 24:7 hangs over it all like a backdrop. Nation will rise against nation, and kingdom against kingdom. There will be famines and earthquakes in various places. Those words aren't meant to scare us. They're meant to put everything that's happening into an order that was already spoken about long ago. The signs in the earth, water, fire, and sky are like markers reminding us that history isn't just drifting along without purpose. As we step into this new year, the fast-moving events show that a time of big upheaval is opening up. Not every change looks like destruction, but they all make us stop and look deeper. Revelation 6-8 brings that feeling to mind. I looked, and there before me was a pale horse. Its rider was named Death. They were given power over a fourth of the earth. It's a picture of judgment, but also a reminder of human limits. In all of this, the message isn't about trying to guess the day or hour. It's about the attitude of our hearts. The signs don't ask for arguments. They invite quiet thought. Amos 4:12 once said, "Prepare to meet your God, O Israel." That preparation starts inside, where each of us asks ourselves where we stand in the middle of all these changes. If what you've just seen touches a thought or a quiet whisper in your heart, let it come out. A short prayer or an honest feeling left in the comments below can become a thread connecting hearts that are all searching for the same peace. We're not alone when we share our faith and our concerns together. So you don't miss the next messages, please like, share, and subscribe to the channel. Every little action helps keep the light from getting lost in all the noise. 1 Corinthians 16:14 reminds us, "Let all that you do be done in love." Finally, thank you from the bottom of my heart to everyone who's listened all the way to the end. May peace cover you and your family, so that even when unrest is spreading, your heart stays anchored in hope. Numbers 6:26 closes with this blessing. The Lord turns his face toward you and gives you peace. Amen.
News special report. I'm Carissa Lawson.
Pasadena, California, where they are still cleaning up the mud.
Do you hear something crashing down from the sky in 2026? It all kicked off so fast and so fierce. Time felt squeezed in those first days of the year. One disaster after another hit hard, giving folks no chance to catch their breath. Huge, unusual waves roared off the coast of Hawaii. A massive fire broke out and swallowed the Yongkang industrial area in Taiwan. Mountains in Kashmir cracked and came crashing down onto the highway. The Quadrantids meteor shower lit up the night sky with blazing fireballs. California got buried under floods. Roads turned into rushing rivers. People paddled canoes right through chaotic city streets. Fish got swept onto dry land, and cries of despair echoed everywhere. Do you feel that terrifying rhythm? Before we dive deeper with me into the real truth behind these early year disasters, please leave a heartfelt prayer in the comments below so we can turn to God together right now. Now, are you ready to move on to the next part? Because behind this chain of events, there are still some dark corners that haven't come to light yet. Let's get started right away with the first event. Giant waves suddenly hit Hawaii. Hawaii started 2026 with a heavy sense of worry. The calm, early days of January were completely shattered. We hadn't even gotten used to the new year when nature struck hard. Familiar beaches suddenly faced unusually high water levels. Tourists and locals were left confused and scared. All you and I could do was watch the emergency news alerts popping up one after another on our screens. In Marin County and the Bay Area of California, king tides, mixed with heavy rain, caused total chaos that no one could control. Seawater flooded inland, rising into neighborhoods along the Pacific coast. In Corte Madera, Highway 101 was submerged and turned into what looked like a new river. Traffic ground to a halt. Police blocked off many roads. Large areas were put under full emergency status. Waves tens of feet high kept pounding Hawaii's beaches, crashing onto the sand like giant walls of water. They swept away lounge chairs, umbrellas, cars, and anything loose. Crowds ran in panic amid terrified screams. Salty spray filled the air like fog. Videos showed the ocean roaring in a way we'd never seen, making it feel like the world was being overwhelmed by chaos right in front of us. Scientists explain that these extreme tides happen every year, but the strength at the start of 2026 went way beyond normal. The mix of climate change, off-season storms, and coastal shapes made the damage worse. This is a clear warning for everyone to get ready for future waves that could be even stronger and more unpredictable. If we keep ignoring these signs, our future will only grow more unstable and fragile. In the book of Matthew, chapter 24, verses 37 to 39, it's written in a haunting way. For in the days before the flood, people were eating and drinking, marrying and giving in marriage, up to the day Noah entered the ark, and they knew nothing about what would happen until the flood came and took them all away. That is how it will be at the coming of the Son of Man. Again, in Luke, chapter 21, verse 25, it's a strong reminder. On the earth, nations will be in anguish and perplexity at the roaring and tossing of the sea. And in Genesis, chapter 7, verses 11 to 12, the old story comes back like a scary memory. All the springs of the great deep burst forth, and the floodgates of the heavens were opened, and rain fell on the earth 40 days and 40 nights. Looking at what's happening now, 2026 really feels closer than ever to the end times. The heavens and the oceans seem to be sending urgent messages all at once, urging us to stay alert as time rushes by faster. Right now, you can join us in turning to God with a sincere prayer in the comments below to spread faith during these troubled days. But Hawaii is just the beginning. The waters have calmed a little, but then more news explodes from far away. Plenty more intense things are waiting ahead. Let's look toward Taiwan, where another disaster is unfolding with blazing fires and thick black smoke. The chain of terrifying events hasn't stopped yet. The terrible fire in Yongkang industrial area, Tainan, Taiwan. 2026 had just started when a shocking piece of bad news hit from Asia. We were all waking up to the new year with some hope. But right around noon on January 4, news agencies sent out urgent alerts about a fierce blaze like nothing before in Yongkang District, Tainan City, Taiwan. It spread so fast it caught everyone off guard, and folks like you and me could only grip our phones tight following those breathless updates. The fire kicked off around 12:30 inches the afternoon from an abandoned factory near the Yongkong interchange, then quickly jumped to piles of scrap materials nearby. Strong winds pushed the flames along like a roaring red storm. Tainan's fire department rushed more than 20 trucks and hundreds of firefighters to battle it. Thick black smoke billowed hundreds of feet into the sky, covering miles around, and traffic turned to total chaos as roads in and out of the industrial zone got blocked off in a hurry. The updates on injuries kept coming in, and it really tugged at the heart. Early reports said at least 3 security guards near the scene got bad burns. 2 others had to rush to the hospital for smoke inhalation. Total damage is guessed over $15 million, with nearby factories scorched. Thousands of square feet of warehouses burned to the ground. Families around Tainan were scared as toxic smoke drifted into residential areas. Those poor victims could only sob in the middle of all that ruin. And you know, in a tragedy like this, none of us can stay on the sidelines without feeling for them. Experts on the environment are still digging into it, pointing to loose rules on handling hazardous waste, unusually dry hot weather, and maybe even high tides early in the year raising the fire risk. It's an urgent wake-up call for everyone to think harder about how we treat nature and industry. Because if we keep taking chances, disasters like this could happen anywhere in 2026, making the days ahead feel even more fragile than ever. While the smoke and flames hadn't fully cleared, the Bible comes to mind like a solemn reminder for our times. In the book of Zephaniah, chapter 1, verse 18, it says, "Neither their silver nor their gold will be able to save them on the day of the Lord's wrath. In the fire of his jealousy, the whole earth will be consumed." Those words hit hard and chilling, like stamping a seal on the chaos you and I just watched, reminding us that all our material things mean nothing when judgment comes. From what's happened and still unfolding, 2026 feels like it's drawing closer to the end times. These awful signs aren't isolated anymore. They're piling up fast. The event in Yongkong district is just one link in a bigger chain, and this part ends on a real spine-chilling note because the fire might calm down in Taiwan, but soon after, the ground started shaking far away. Look over to India, where mountains are cracking and another disaster is waiting up ahead. Terrifying landslide in Kashmir, India. The mountains of Kashmir have stood there for thousands of years, quiet and steady, never moving an inch, until that sudden moment when the ground roared and all the calm got ripped apart in a flash. No warning at all, no familiar signs, just that chill down your spine when nature suddenly shows its scary power. On January 2, 2026, in Baramulla in Jammu and Kashmir, a huge section of mountain came crashing down onto the road to Srinagar. Rocks and dirt poured down like a waterfall, smashing the pavement and blocking traffic right away. Those massive boulders, tons heavy, came tumbling at terrifying speed, leaving behind a thick cloud of dust that covered the sky and turned midday into a choking gray haze. Matthew 24, verse 7 once warned, "There will be earthquakes in many places." Those words hit hard amid the sight of mountains shifting, as if the earth won't stay still under our feet anymore. The sound of rocks crashing against each other echoed through the valley, bouncing off the cliffs like non-stop thunder. Many drivers panicked, left their cars behind, and ran in all directions to find cover as more big rocks kept falling. The hillside got gouged deep, full of jagged cracks, looking like a body that's just been torn open, showing its raw and frightening core. Revelation 6, verse 14 says it plain. Every mountain and island was moved from its place. Seeing the wrecked slopes in Kashmir, those words don't feel like symbols anymore. They're right there in the rocks, dust, and chaos in front of you. People who saw it say the ground shook a little just before the slide, like the earth's heavy breath. In that moment, you really get how small we are compared to the power working under that seemingly solid ground. In 1 second, all your plans, trips, and overconfidence get buried. Nahum 1 verse 5 says, "The mountains quake before him, and the hills melt." Those words echo through time, casting a holy shadow over the disaster that just happened. Scientists later explained that heavy rain for days, along with construction work, had seriously weakened the soil and rocks. Local authorities quickly closed off the area, sent out urgent warnings, and told folks to stay away from the slopes and get ready for more slides that could happen anytime. But even with science giving the reasons, that uneasy feeling doesn't go away. The mountain just stopped falling. The dirt hasn't settled yet, And already the sky is showing some strange signs. And somewhere out there, mysterious lights are being seen dropping from the sky, blazing fireballs in the night sky. In the late night news early in January 2026, the skies over South America weren't lit up by shooting stars, but by deadly streaks of fire that looked like military missiles. From the Caribbean Sea all the way to the cities in northern Venezuela, one fireball after another came hurtling down at terrifying speeds, leaving behind explosions that shook the ground. It all hit so suddenly, like a bad dream you can't wake up from. Can you believe the world has stepped right up to the edge of real war? Around 9:15 p.m. on January 5th, 2026, the U.S. military launched a big airstrike operation against targets in Caracas and the port area of La Guaira. According to the official word, more than 70 cruise missiles were fired off in just the first hour. But what people saw in the live videos was even more intense than any report. One missile after another lit up bright as it tore through the clouds, exploding like man-made thunder and turning the dark night into a string of non-stop flashes. Early reports from local officials said at least 215 people were killed, more than 900 injured, and many neighborhoods near Maiquetía Airport were badly destroyed. The national power grid went haywire, hospitals were overwhelmed, and traffic came to a standstill. Damage to buildings and roads was already over $1.2 billion after just 2 days of fighting. Pictures of families hugging and crying in the rubble really tug at your heart. Matthew 24:6 says, "You will hear of wars and rumors of wars. See that you are not alarmed, for this must take place." Those Bible words ring out like a warning bell amid the fires in Venezuela, reminding us that we can't escape the results of pride and hate. The videos kept showing thick black smoke, rising thousands of feet, covering the capital like a blanket of mourning. In the Aragua industrial area, a bunch of chemical plants exploded one after another, creating huge columns of fire you could see from dozens of miles away. Folks there were told to take shelter right away, and tens of thousands fled in panic toward the Colombia border. Revelation 8:7 warns, "Fire mixed with blood was thrown down to the earth. A third of the earth was burned up." With missiles falling like rain, those words feel like a charge against a world that's lighting its own fuse for Judgment Day. Online around the world, arguments exploded. Some folks supported the military action for political reasons. Others called it way beyond any moral line. Prayer groups online called for peace and mercy. Where do you stand in all these clashing views? In Washington, the Pentagon put out its highest security alert, saying the conflict could spread across the region. In Caracas, sirens kept blaring every hour. Churches opened up for people seeking shelter, and pastors urged everyone to turn to spiritual protection. Isaiah 2:19 reminds us, "People will flee to caves in the rocks from the terror of the Lord." A lot of folks believe those words are coming true right in our time. The missiles keep falling, and the world keeps shaking with every news update. The fires of war in Venezuela aren't out yet, but out east, the seas are stirring up strange waves. This story isn't over. Cars submerged in California flooding. Those pictures from California at the start of 2026 hit your screen and just tug at your heart. The cold, fierce water rose so high it was hard to believe, turning parking lots, streets, and quiet neighborhoods into a maze of murky gray. You could really feel how small we humans are against the unstoppable force of nature just from watching those few minutes of video. Early on the morning of January 1st, 2026, king tides mixed with days of heavy rain caused record flooding in Marin County and the whole Bay Area. Water from creeks and storm drains spilled onto highways, seeped into shopping areas, train stations, and apartment basements. In many live videos, dozens of cars got swallowed up in just hours, with only their roofs peeking out like desperate little islands in a sea of water. Local rescue teams said at least 34 people died, trapped in their vehicles, or swept away by the current, and more than 120 ended up in the hospital with hypothermia or traffic accidents. Nearly 4,800 homes suffered major damage. 17 small bridges collapsed completely, and over 60,000 vehicles were reported damaged or gone in the flood. Total property losses were estimated to top $2.6 billion in just the first 3 days of the new year. Those cold numbers can't begin to capture the pain for families who lost loved ones and everything they owned. Many car owners stood shivering on the roadside, helpless as the vehicle they'd worked a lifetime for slowly sank into the dirty water. Small businesses had their warehouses ruined, shops wrecked, schools closed indefinitely. The rain kept falling on leaky roofs like tears that wouldn't stop. Genesis 7:17 says, "The flood continued 40 days on the earth. The waters increased and bore up the ark, and it rose high above the earth." Those Bible words echo through the scenes of flooded California, like a warning about how we think we're always safe from danger. By the afternoon of January 2nd, 2026, the California governor declared a state of emergency in 6 coastal counties. Shelters opened up in San Rafael, Oakland, and San Francisco to take in more than 15,000 people forced from their homes. Power grids and internet kept going out. Hundreds of flights were canceled. Trains stopped running. The muddy water still rushed along the boulevards like a monster, stirring for more victims. Matthew 24:38 reminds us, "For in the days before the flood, people were eating and drinking, marrying and giving in marriage, until the flood came and took them all away." Looking at the footage of cars floating and streets turned to rivers, those words feel like a mirror for how fragile our times are. This isn't just one state's story. It's a wake-up call for everyone in 2026. The California floods show we're getting closer to bigger challenges ahead. As night fell on the mess left behind, folks watching knew this flood was just the first link in the chain. But out across the Atlantic, a historic snowstorm was building and getting ready to sweep the U.S. The journey of these signs goes on. Highway 101 turns into a raging river in California. Looking down from the screen at Highway 101 near Corte Madera, in those first days of January 2026, it felt like watching a bad dream come back to life. The straight lane suddenly turned into a wide stretch of rushing water. The pavement disappeared under it, and the flood roared ahead without mercy. Even just watching the video again, it felt like being right in the middle of the storm, where everything turns upside down in a split second. The floodwaters kept rising to record levels, with some spots over 6 feet deep, spilling over the median and turning the whole freeway into one angry new river. Cars got stuck in the muddy water, then swept away, floating like lifeless objects, while scared drivers climbed on top of their roofs calling for help. Local authorities quickly closed off many sections of road, sent out hundreds of rescue workers, set up pumps to drain the water, and put up emergency barriers to try to stop the chaos from spreading. Psalm 93, verses 3 and 4 says, "The seas have lifted up, Lord. The seas have lifted up their voice. The seas have lifted up their pounding waves. Mightier than the thunder of the great waters. Mightier than the breakers of the sea. The Lord on high is mighty." Those Bible words echoed through the roaring water in the video, a strong reminder that when the rivers rage, people have nothing to hold on to but staying alert to God. Weather reporters across the country kept putting out urgent updates, saying heavy rain was still falling over a big part of the Bay Area and along the Pacific coast. Radar maps were covered in scary red and orange patches, warning of more flooding to come. Folks in cutoff areas started to worry, looking for safe places, stocking up on gas and food. Grocery stores ran low on supplies, delivery trucks couldn't get through, and many families were running out of food as the emergency dragged on. Revelation chapter 12, verse 15 says, "The serpent poured water like a river out of his mouth after the woman to sweep her away with a flood." That image strangely matched the footage from California at the start of 2026, with water pouring out like it was unleashed to test people's faith and the pride of a troubled world. Local leaders kept sending out warnings to everyone, telling people to evacuate low areas, advising to only travel by boat or special vehicles, and calling on the community to help each other get through it. But fear spread faster than any alert, because water doesn't wait or bargain. It just keeps coming toward every home, every street, every doorstep. Luke 21, verse 25 says, "There will be signs in the sun and moon and stars, and on the earth dismay among nations, bewildered by the roaring of the sea and the surging of the waves." Facing the hopelessness spreading across the screen, those words felt like a final judgment for anyone still turning away from the call to turn back to God. This is a loud warning for our time. When floods challenge us, when people run out of strength, when cities grind to a halt, the world has to take a hard look at itself. But folks in America hadn't even caught their breath when another big problem started closing in. Americans have to use canoes to get around, Fresh videos from Marin County spreading in the early days of 2026 show a worrying and inconvenient picture. Modern neighborhoods suddenly deep underwater, and daily life turned upside down in ways hard to accept. RV parks, parking lots, small roads into town all flooded more than 5 feet deep. Folks wading through or desperately looking for other ways to get by in the mess. Watch with me, and you see a new year starting with way too big a challenge. The rising water didn't stay on just a few streets. It spread across the whole Bay Area, flooding alleys, covering parks, ball fields, and busy residential areas. In many live videos, Americans had to paddle canoes to move around, carrying small bags, trying to buy what's left of food in far-off stores. Kids huddled on the boats, older folks shivering as they held tight to the paddles like their last hope. Modern cities changing shape right before viewers' eyes, kind of like the old legend of Atlantis, a shining civilization sunk by its own pride. Gas stations shut down, grocery stores cut off from supplies, ambulances unable to reach flooded spots, hospitals overwhelmed, isolated areas facing running out of food. At least 52 people lost their lives trying to get around in small boats. More than 300 missing along the California and Oregon coasts. Tens of thousands of families forced to leave homes in chaos. Temporary docks set up in a hurry, but every fix too slow against such fierce flooding, and despair building thick like dark smoke in a breaking world. Genesis chapter 7, verses 19 to 20 says, "The waters prevailed exceedingly upon the earth, rising higher than all the high mountains under the whole heaven. The mountains were covered, the waters rising above the hilltops." Those Bible words stand out like a warning we can't ignore, reminding us that when floods swallow proud lands, we need to remember old lessons we've forgotten. Videos of people paddling canoes through shopping areas, schools, and parking lots look like a modern Atlantis facing a tough test. Road signs sticking up out of the water, then half submerged too. Many call it the worst flood in over a century for America, but the pain for families losing homes and loved ones is bigger than any words. Cries heard at temporary docks, dogs and cats carried onto canoes, precious things left behind. The future as unclear as a rainy gray sky. Matthew chapter 24, verses 37 to 39 reminds us, "As it was in the days of Noah, so it will be at the coming of the Son of Man." People didn't expect a thing until the flood came and swept them all away. Watching these scenes on screen, viewers get that all the signs are urging the world to wake up. The first days of 2026 lay out a picture of despair, modern cities shaking, people confused, water ruling almost everything. This isn't just regular news. It's a strong warning about a time of judgment unfolding in our era. But California isn't the end. Fish washing up on shore, wrecked cars piled underwater, and far off, the sky getting ready to bring down new, even harder to predict events. The journey of the 10 signs still rushing ahead at a breathless pace. Fish swept onto land by the flood. Fish got swept onto dry land during that California storm. A sight that stood out against the heavy gray sky and roads covered in muddy water. Heavy rain poured down hard, making the Ventura River rise way too fast, with water rushing down from upstream like some unseen force breaking through everything. What would you think seeing creatures that belong in the river suddenly out on cold pavement? The fierce water broke out of the riverbanks in just a few hours, carrying away trees, trash, and mud, turning whole neighborhoods into a swirling mess. Carp and other freshwater fish got pushed out of their usual home and tossed right onto streets and empty lots. They flopped around non-stop, their shiny bodies covered in mud, mouths gaping helplessly in this strange place. The Bible, in Exodus chapter 7, verse 18 says, "The fish in the river will die, and the river will stink. The Egyptians will not be able to drink its water." Those fish struggling in the floodwaters sparked huge debates online, with pictures spreading like wildfire across the country. A lot of folks say we can protect ourselves from disasters with modern inventions, technology, and better warning systems. Plenty disagree, saying nature's power always goes beyond what we plan or understand. Which side would you pick when faced with these opposing views that nobody has fully settled? The storm kept pushing river water out to sea and then throwing it back onto shore, creating a cruel cycle for those little creatures. In that moment, the fish were a lot like us humans, fragile and vulnerable against the huge forces at work all around. Scientific achievements that seem so solid can suddenly feel as fragile as those fish. The Bible in Revelation chapter 16 verse 3 says, "The second angel poured out his bowl on the sea, and it turned into blood, like that of a dead person, and every living thing in the sea died." Amid all the endless talk, many people connected it to the story of Jonah as a haunting reminder. In the book of Jonah, chapter 1, verse 17, it says, "Now the Lord had prepared a great fish to swallow Jonah. And Jonah was in the belly of the fish 3 days and 3 nights." Those ancient words come across like a final judgment, stronger and clearer than any modern explanations. As the water slowly receded, the worn-out fish lay still on the roads, bodies covered in mud, motionless under the darkening sky. That scene became a symbol of how helpless every living thing is against sudden disaster. We know that from the deep oceans to far-off forests, from California to distant Venezuela, the world follows an order beyond human control. The 8th event wrapped up, but its mysterious echo lingered, with roads drying out as if nothing had happened. The ocean and the land keep whispering to each other in their strange language. Are you ready for whatever might come next, when the signs in the sky don't seem to stop? People crying over losing their homes on New Year's. The first day of the new year in California arrived with tears and sobbing, leaving a heavy sadness over neighborhoods still deep underwater. A young woman posted a video standing in her wrecked home with the caption, "The first day of January, 2026, lost everything that touched millions of hearts." That image brings deep sympathy, like a quiet reminder that behind the New Year's Eve fireworks are folks going through way too much hardship. Floodwaters rushed into homes in no time, turning what should have been happy family gatherings into a nightmare nobody saw coming. Furniture was scattered all over. Wet floors and fridges, washers, TVs, and computers were completely ruined from sitting in water for days. RV parks in Marin County were flooded almost to the roofs, and little kids had to wade through cold water to leave their familiar homes. The Bible in Matthew chapter 24, verse 39, says it clear. "The flood came and took them all away, and they didn't know anything until the disaster hit." Roads that used to be busy with traffic now just had the soft sound of paddles from rescue boats. Folks had to pack whatever was left into a few plastic bags, trying to salvage family keepsakes from thick mud. The air around New Year's, which should have been warm and cozy, felt heavier and more uneasy than ever. In Psalms chapter 137, verse 1, there's that lament, "By the rivers of Babylon, there we sat down and wept when we remembered the place we lost." Nature in those days seemed scary and cold, like it wasn't hearing any cries for help. Damp winds blew through flooded park areas, pushing fish onto the shore, only to sweep them away again, creating a chaotic scene like nothing before. Every hour that passed meant another home left behind, another family in need. Revelation chapter 18 verse 11 also notes, "The merchants of the earth will weep and mourn because no one buys their goods anymore." On social media, discussions exploded fiercely about this New Year's tragedy. Some said it's just the natural cycle of storms and climate change, that the world's used to tough weather patterns. Many others spoke up for their faith, saying these ongoing painful signs carry a holy warning for mankind. The opposing views kept clashing non-stop, painting a picture full of emotion. Which side would you take when you see all this happening right in front of you? Amid the losses, what's strongest is the love and togetherness between people. Neighbors shared food, warm blankets, and clean water, helping each other set up temporary shelters on the few high spots left. But that modern Atlantis kept getting swallowed by murky waters, like a city breathing its last on the edge of tomorrow. Everything ends with a young woman's cries amid the rubble, but the echo of it lingers on. The New Year's sky went quiet without fireworks, just the soft paddles guiding folks through deeply flooded streets. What's waiting ahead for America after this early year flood? Parks turned into a vast river. The last days of 2025 passed in a scene that's hard to believe, as parks in Marin County turned into a huge sheet of water, stretching as far as you could see, completely upsetting everyday life. Places that used to be green spots for families and kids were now just a cold, empty expanse of water, slowly swallowing up benches, walking paths, and flat, grassy areas. The highest king tides in decades, combined with ongoing rain, pushed the water levels to heights never seen before. Seeing something like that, can you feel how much the world is changing in a scary way? Local authorities kept sending out urgent alerts, telling folks to stay away from low spots and find higher ground. The public speakers blared every morning, reminding people to get ready to evacuate if needed. RV parks near the coast were flooded 3 to 5 feet deep, forcing hundreds of families to leave homes they'd lived in for years. The murky water crept in slow but steady, turning parks into one giant lake. The Bible in Genesis chapter 7 verse 23 says, "Every living thing on the face of the earth was wiped out. People and animals and the creatures that move along the ground and the birds were wiped from the earth." Rescue teams worked around the clock, setting up temporary barriers and places for evacuated people. Many roads around the parks were closed off because you couldn't tell where the road ended and the water began. People had to use boats to get to stores for supplies or take kids to safer spots. Playgrounds, slides, and sports fields were buried under dark brown water. Everything piled up, one after another, full of mystery, like a wave of despair washing over modern life. Local weather reports described the emergency with worrying numbers. King tides peaking at 7.1 feet, almost 2 feet higher than the yearly average. Alerts came out every day about getting sandbags ready, closing basements, and turning off power in nearby neighborhoods. Schools switched to online learning, and many community centers stayed open 24 hours for folks seeking shelter. The Bible in Revelation chapter 8 verse 8 warns, "A great mountain, all ablaze, was thrown into the sea, and a third of the sea turned into blood." No more arguing or talking about it, just orders and warnings, one after another to keep people safe. Coastal parks were completely changed. Trees drowned and dying, birds gone, and small creatures trapped in swirling pools. The modern city suddenly looked like a new version of the lost Atlantis, slowly sinking under nature's unstoppable power. Isaiah chapter 24 verse 19 says, "The earth is broken up, the earth is split asunder, the earth is violently shaken." With all this happening, the earth seems to be under a final judgment with no explanation. These widespread floods show just how small and fragile we humans are. This isn't just a passing inconvenience, it's a strong warning for the whole country. Let faith rise up, because what happened in Marin County is just one piece of a bigger picture. The 10th event closes in scary silence, but its echo lingers in every lost paddle out on the water. What will America face next? Leave a prayer in the comments so we can all turn our hearts to the Lord. 2026 kicked off with a string of events that left the whole country stunned, like a chill wind cutting right through folks' hearts. From unusual flooding in California, fierce fires flaring up in the middle of winter, to landslides and a comet showing up in the sky, all hitting hard right in the first days of the year. Everyday life that used to feel steady suddenly turned into a mess full of despair and loss. With the way things are going, do you sense the world is heading into some kind of turning point we've never seen before? The damage numbers reported in just a few short weeks are enough to make anyone shudder. Dozens hurt or killed in flash floods, hundreds of homes burned down, and so many families' belongings swept away in muddy waters. Roads and highways shut down, towns declaring emergencies, and local officials sending out serious warnings left and right. This isn't just random bad luck anymore. It's like a wake-up call for a world that's been asleep. Mark chapter 13, verse 33 says, "Stay awake and pray, because you don't know when that time will come." Americans are facing the hard truth that all our modern inventions can't stand up to nature's fury. Cars submerged in parking lots, houses floating in floodwaters, even fish washed up on dry land. It all shows how fragile we really are. The sky and the ground seem to be sending the same message. Luke chapter 21, verse 25 reminds us, "There will be signs in the sun, moon, and stars, and on the earth nations in anguish and perplexity." The Bible doesn't come across as easy comfort here. It's more like a final judgment on human unbelief and pride. What happened this year in 2026 brings to mind the story of Noah's flood, when water swallowed everything on earth. This is the moment for each of us to pause, repent, and turn back to the Creator before it's too late. Isaiah chapter 24, verse 19 says, "The earth is broken up, the earth is split asunder, the earth is violently shaken." In these tough times, the only thing that lasts is real faith in the Lord. He's knocking on every heart, calling people to live humbly and stay alert. Keep praying and trusting in Him to find the strength to get through the storms. Are you ready to come back to the Lord, or are you still hesitating at that crossroads? Thanks for listening and joining me on this journey, looking back at 10 unusual events across America. Leave a prayer or share your thoughts in the comments so our voices of faith can ring out stronger. Please like, share, and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any messages the Lord wants to send in the parts to come. Before wrapping up, let's pray for you and your family to stay safe in the Lord's hands through this stormy 2026. May every home find shelter in faith, so even if the waters rage outside, there's still a light of hope burning inside. And if this is just the beginning, where will the next chapter take America? Keep praying and staying watchful.
Late last night and early today, at my direction.
Okay, that was President Trump speaking earlier today.
We're going to run the country until such time as we can do a safe.
No one is perfect, but who appoints presidents? God, Jesus Christ.
What would happen if every church in a country that's been locked up tight for years suddenly got thrown wide open in just one night? When Trump gave the order to open up all the churches in Venezuela, it wasn't just some political move. It was a signal that shook the world, like a prophetic seal finally getting broken. Church bells rang out after years of silence. Faith rose up from the ruins, and things started speeding up in a way nobody could ignore anymore. Do you feel like something big is finally being allowed to happen? That one action set off a chain of changes coming fast. Religious freedom exploding, power shifting directions, ancient prophecies getting talked about again like they'd never gone quiet. But the real question is, what's coming next? Because not every door that gets opened leads to peace. Before we dive deeper and pull back the curtain on the truth, why not leave a quick prayer in the comments asking for the world to stay at peace? And now, so you don't have to wait too long, let's get right into it with Explosion of Religious Freedom. Trump awakens the silenced churches in Venezuela. On January 4, 2026, hot news stories popped up all over social media and international TV, spreading faster than usual. Trump orders Venezuelan churches reopened after lightning strike. That's the big headline CNN ran, while Fox News highlighted, Maduro captured. Catholic churches open for first time after a decade of crackdown. We're watching a moment where religion, politics, and power clash head-on, way beyond normal predictions. In just a few hours, pictures from Caracas, Maracaibo, and Valencia flooded online platforms. Church doors sealed for years swung wide open, bells rang through neighborhoods that had gone quiet, and thousands of believers rushed in, full of joy and shock. For many folks watching on screens, it felt like seeing a chapter of history fast-forwarded right in front of them. This event ties straight back to Venezuela's long crisis, starting in 2013. After taking power, Nicolás Maduro's government tightened control over society, and religion became a touchy area. Hundreds of Catholic and Protestant churches got shut down. Over 50 priests and pastors were arrested on charges of stirring up trouble, and public worship was strictly limited. It's not just Venezuela. Crackdowns and damage to religious sites have shown up in many places around the world lately. In France, from 2023 to 2025, hundreds of churches were vandalized or set on fire, including the blaze at Église Saint-Germain in La Châtre-Indre on September 29, 2025, with damages around $5 million. In Paris alone, just in 3 days, in August 2025, 2 churches were desecrated, sparking heated debates about Christianophobia in Europe. Right in that global setting, President Donald Trump's decision on January 3, 2026, turned things around. According to military sources, the U.S. launched a quick strike on key targets in Caracas, about 1,500 miles from the U.S. border. The short operation led to Nicolás Maduro's capture and transfer to New York for trial under international law. Soon after, U.S. forces and restructured local security units stepped in on religious controls. Seals were removed, churches were allowed to operate again, and hundreds of detained believers were freed. Sunday services happened openly for the first time in years, with crowds bigger than expected. Amid the flood of news, some observers pointed to Daniel 7:25 as a noteworthy reference. It says, "And he shall speak great words against the Most High, and shall wear out the saints of the Most High, and think to change times and laws. And they shall be given into his hand until a time and times and the dividing of time." For many, this Bible verse brings to mind times when political power tries to control faith until an unexpected shift happens. Back on the ground, reports from Venezuela described an atmosphere of excitement mixed with chaos. Church bells rang alongside helicopter sounds. Candlelight lit up empty sanctuaries once more, while traces of military conflict lingered outside. This was a moment where straight news and shared emotions almost blended together. But even as joy spread among believers, arguments exploded online. Trump supporters said the action restored stolen religious freedom and showed America's role as a global protector of faith. They shared photos of open churches as proof that military moves can bring positive change. On the other side, critics called it over-the-line interference, setting a risky precedent by tying religion directly to military action. Some analysts warned that using force to free faith could trigger chain reactions, worsening conflicts in already unstable areas. In that wave of opposing views, Daniel 7:25 kept coming up, not as proof of who's right, but as a way to think about cycles of power, suppression, and release that have repeated through human history. The facts show that in just 48 hours after the event, search terms like religious freedom, Venezuela churches, and Trump intervention hit tens of millions of hits. That proves the interest goes far beyond US politics or Latin America. It's a worldwide issue now. In the middle of that info storm, we, the folks watching from screens, are in a unique spot, not right there in Caracas, but seeing every image, every comment, every clashing reaction roll in nonstop. It feels like time is compressed, everything moving faster than we can process. The move to open all churches in Venezuela has, in practical terms, brought back religious life to over 10,000 Catholic and Protestant sites. But symbolically, it raises bigger questions about the lines between power, faith, and a changing world order. And right at that crossroads, the story isn't over. Is this just a one-time action, or the start of deeper changes, where things once seen as impossible are now reality? What about you? Looking at the Venezuela events, which side do you lean toward? A needed breakthrough for religious freedom, or a dangerous precedent for the world's future? An ancient prophecy echoes again. Trump's actions in Venezuela were foretold long ago in religious circles. Just as the church doors in Venezuela were closing after that first big explosion of events, another layer of information started coming out, slower, deeper, and leaving a lot of folks who follow this stuff feeling a bit uneasy. The news stories weren't just about military moves or politics anymore. They went back in time, digging up words that had been spoken years earlier. It didn't feel like just hearing the news anymore. It was more like watching an old book quietly turn its own pages. On January 5, 2026, Breitbart ran a piece titled, something like "Ancient Prophecy Links Trump to Religious Revival in Latin America." Around the same time, the Christian Post put out a long analysis called "Biblical Prophecy and Trump's Role in the Religious Struggle." These articles weren't breaking new events. They were asking, had what just happened in Venezuela been talked about before? In those pieces, the name Kim Clement came up a lot. Back in 2007, in a teaching session that was recorded and still available, he mentioned a U.S. leader who's not like the usual moral kings, but who would be used to open doors that have been shut down south of here. When that old video got played again, a lot of people watching felt like they were seeing words that had been overlooked suddenly fit perfectly. What made the match so hard to believe was the detail about the South. Back in 2007, there wasn't any real reason to single out Venezuela as some global religious hotspot. But almost 20 years later, that very country became the place where all the churches got opened up in just a few hours after a military event, exactly like the picture of long locked doors swinging wide open. That strange feeling got even stronger as church attacks kept happening at the same time in other parts of the world. On January 1, 2026,